Yoso Bhagava Alahang Sama Sambuddho Soakato Yena Bhagavata Akipano Yasa Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Tammayang Bhagavantang Sadhammang Sasangang Imehi Sakare Hiyatarahang Aropite Hi Abhipujayama Sadhuno Bhante Bhagava Suchira Parinibbhotopi Pachima Janata Nukampa Manasa Ime Sakare Dugata Panakala Bhute Patigan Hatu Amhakang Dikharatang Hitaya Sukhaya Alahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vija charana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhammasarati satate wa manusana buddha bhagava tamahang bhagavantang abhipujayami tamahang bhagavantang sirasa namami Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanayiko Pachata Vedita Bo Vinyuhi Tamahang Dhammang Abhipujayami Tamahang Dhammang Sirasa Namami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Ujjupatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Yaya patipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Chipatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Yadidang Chattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pugala Esa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anutarang Punya Ketang Lokasa Tamahang Sangang Abhipujayami Tamahang Sangang Sirasa Namami. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, not busy with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to false views, the pure being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent. Hello, welcome. Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's get into it. Hi, Ajahn. Anyway, when the first time I arrived in Jhana Grove, I can sleep very well. But when the retreat starts on Monday and I started to meditate, since then I have had trouble sleeping every night. Is it normal? Yes. It means you're getting more energy coming up, more peace, more happiness. You don't feel like sleeping. Why sleep? How hard is it to get to Jhana Grove Retreat Center? It's very, very popular. So your body's telling you, let's make the most of this. So you can always go to sleep, especially the young ones. You can go to sleep when you go back to school. I try to relax my body, but it's not really works. Sometimes I feel scared because cannot sleep, so that now I feel a little bit tired. What should I do? You know these talks I give, do they relax you? Yes. So, just lower your head, just as I'm giving the talk. No, it's just do the best you can. But it's true that people do say I have a nice soft voice. That's why I send people to sleep. Is that true? Yes. You see, so just keep listening, and after a while, you'll fall fast asleep. It's called brainwashing. Okay, you know this story. I'm going to let Ayachanda notice. I tell these stories in so many places. There was this monk, and he just started off his temple, and it was really, really difficult to raise enough funds to pay the bills. And so he went to see the senior monk, and the senior monk told him, have I told this story before? Not on this retreat, okay. Good, I'll do. And so he went to see the senior monk, and the senior monk told him, look, the same thing happens to everybody when you start a temple. Just so, do what I used to do. When I started off as a monk and as a teacher, I made sure I closed all the windows in the hall. And I turned up the heaters, so I got very hot and stuffy. And I gave a boring talk, the most boring talk I possibly could. And then, which was quite easy for monks. It's easy for nuns. No, they always give interesting talks. You see, I'm being nice. And he said that when people are about to go to sleep, I get out these little watches, on chains, like that, yes. And I do it backwards and forwards until they're sleepy, they're tired, and now they get hypnotized. And before they go to sleep, I tell them, once you're under hypnosis, when you leave the hall, you will give not just $5 and $10 and coin donations, not 20s, either $50 notes or $100 notes, every one of you. He said, I can't do that, that's fraud. That's not fraud, that's encouraging good karma, donations. So he tried it. The next time he gave a talk, he closed all the windows, turned up the heaters, gave a boring talk when people were about to fall asleep anyway. He got out his clock and said, watch the clock. And then, you are now under hypnosis. And then before you leave the hall, you will make a donation. Every one of you, no coins, no low denomination notes, only 50s and 100s. And it worked. That day he made a lot of money for his temple. And he just paid a lot of his bills and had a bit over. And so he didn't have to do it next week. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks. He tried it again because he was running out of cash. So he closed all the windows, put up the heaters, was about to give a boring talk. And as he was getting his watch out to get them all hypnotized, he was almost hypnotized, but as he was about to tell them what to do next, you know what happened? He dropped the watch. It went smash on the ground. And he swore. The monk said, oh shit. And because people were hypnotized, that's what they did. That taught him a lesson. Never try that again. It took him a couple of weeks to clean up the hall. Do you understand? Thank you. Hi Ajahn, what are your thoughts? Nothing. That's the best thoughts. On saying bad words. Oh my goodness, I just did. Does it give bad karma, or is it, what is it? Is it based on intentions? Yes, it's based on intentions. So that was like, it's not the best word, but it fits the story. You know, so that's why you say those words, the S-H-I-T word. And it's not a nice word, but it's not a bad word. It's just a word, that's all. That's one of the reasons why. You know that book which I wrote, Who Ordered This Truckload of Dung? When that title was proposed to the printers, I told them, no, I don't want that title. I want Who Ordered This Truckload of S-H-I-T? I mean, that was much more confronting, but it was supposed to be. That would have doubled the sales, I'm sure. But the publishers, Wisdom Publications, they said no. Apparently, there are some words which in the United States you can't say in public. You have to say them in private. They say them all the time, but not on books and stuff. So they said no. And I didn't have enough energy to actually complain. Anyway, dear Ajahn, how do we use inspiration in calming meditation? Oh, haven't you actually been paying attention? In a calming meditation on the breath, you're watching the breath with a short inspiration of air and then a long expiration of air, breathing in short, breathing out long. That's what inspiration means. It's called respiration. You do it again afterwards, re-inspiration. Inspiration, expiration, put them together, it's called respiration. Okay. But inspiration in calming meditation, sometimes it's because you have a lack of energy. And you know, sometimes that you hear a really good talk, the talks of some of the best inspirations. You know, these days I hardly ever get to listen to a talk, because I usually have to give the talk. But when I listen to some of those talks, wow, they're beautiful. And they really sort of inspire you. You think, wow, it's amazing, the Dhamma of the Buddha. And you contemplate it, and you just lose all of any tiredness you had. Many of the hindrances just vanish away. You know, many talks which I've heard make me cry, because they're so beautiful. And when they do, I get so inspired that I always know that, okay, find a quiet place, sit down and meditate. And meditation is so easy. That was where that story with Ajahn, when he got close to the end of his life, we built a sauna for him over in Wat Nanachart, so he could have a place to have to come and hopefully get a little bit better, more healthier. But not just that, so he could always give us a Dhamma talk once a week. It was kind of selfish, but also giving to your teacher. He'd come every week for a sauna, and he'd always give a talk first. And on this occasion, it's an old story, I'm sure you know it, he gave a beautiful Dhamma talk, really hitting the spot. And because it was so beautiful, I was so inspired afterwards. That's what I did. I went back around the back of the hall and just crossed my legs and sat for a couple of hours. And that was like on hard concrete, no cushions. I couldn't wait to find a cushion. Just wanted to get into samadhi, and it's beautiful samadhi. When I came out afterwards, if you come out of a nice meditation, it's just very open. Your mind is malleable, you've got energy, and you're just really happy. And so then I decided I should try and do some service for my teacher, but it's my teacher was about to do a good service for me. That's when he came, we crossed paths. And I don't mind saying this because, you know, that Ajahn Chah's passed away now. I won't say this about living monks or nuns, but he was just such a great monk. And I was passing him, he looked at me, I stopped by the side of the path, and he went into my mind. It's a weird thing to actually to say to you, but you could feel him inside. Strange, and how I was going to explain it, but he was reading my mind. And for once I was very happy he was reading my mind, because it was, you know, nicely tidied up. It's like, you know, when you go and see my cave. I invite the kids, if they want to, after lunch tomorrow, they want to go and see my cave. When my cave is nice and tidy, I don't mind people visiting it. If it's really a mess, I'm a bit embarrassed. Is that true for you? Would you be happy if I read your mind? You know, a lot of times I won't. You know why? It's like reading Pulp Fiction, a bad book. Who wants to go in there? That's the truth of the matter. But mine was nice and clean and happy. And he went inside and he obviously checked it out after a nice meditation. And then he stopped and he looked at me. Brahm Wangsa. Why? I wasn't scared, he was just making sure that he kept my attention. Why? What's the answer? I did tell this story, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. But here on this retreat. Anyway, and I said, I don't know. I was a young monk still. And he said, he laughed. It was a stupid answer. But then he looked at me again, Brahma Wangsa, I will tell you the answer. That was really exciting. I didn't deserve to be told the answer. But he said, if any monk ever asks you that question again, why? The answer is this. And that was really exciting. Unfortunately, I don't really think you're up to hearing that answer, so I'll carry on with the next question. Of course you are, ready. He said the answer is, how come you're actually paying attention for once? said the answer is, there's nothing. There's nothing. Do you understand? And that's when I said, yes? And then he replied, no you don't. I remembered that interchange. He was really being kind, trying to give me that last little trick, to get fully enlightened. I wasn't ready for it. Why? Why, Freddie? When you say there's nothing, that's very challenging. There's nothing, nothing at all. Do you understand? One day, because that seed has been planted in you, one day it will happen and you will understand. That's the great teachers. That's what I use inspiration for. To make your mind really clear and clean. It's so easy to meditate. You're so inspired, so happy inside, you don't need anything. Anyway, hi Ajahn, who's teaching? Teaching in jhanas is so unique and almost no other monks are teaching it. I know some nuns who are teaching it. I know some other monks who teach it. But it's kind of strange that even in Vietnam, because I traveled a lot, I found out that the monks in Vietnam, they call it the United Vietnamese Sangha, whatever it is, but the Mahayanas and the Theravadas, they work together. And for many years they banned any monks from teaching jhanas. No one's ever taught me why. But that happened, but they're okay now they teach jhanas. I remember sometimes why some monks don't teach jhanas, I think because they're challenged by them. And I remember this one monk, I will not say who he is. I was going into a monastery in England once. I was just going in the door, and he looked around, and he grabbed me by the shoulder and pulled me to one side. He was going to give me some secret message. That's what it felt like. He said, he looked around, really shifty, and he said, Ajahn Brahm, thank you for teaching jhanas. It was like I was doing something which was illegal or dodgy. And, jhanas are part of the Eightfold Path. There's so many quotes there. When, after the Buddha died, Ananda was a go-to person. And so they asked Ananda, what did the Buddha teach in meditation? And he says, Gopaka Moggallana Sutta. Said the Buddha only ever taught 4 types of meditation. You know what 4 types of meditation the Buddha taught? Was it like Vipassana and Metta meditation and breath meditation? Was that the answer to that question? No, when Ananda said the Buddha only taught 4 types of meditation, he explained first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. That's throughout the whole suttas and the Vinaya too. That's what the Buddha taught. What would happen after you pass away? Be at peace. No more questions. Will someone carry on? Yeah, of course they will. And if no monk or nun carries on, at least a venerable YouTube will carry on. Or put it another way, are there any of your monks or nuns, students, with level or something similar to you? Find out. Usually I have these old sayings that when the sun sets, then the moon comes out. When the moon sets and disappears, then the stars shine. I love that simile. This morning you said nature is beautiful. You also mentioned about tsunami crocodile. Would like to ask why nature sometimes kills people. For example, in tsunami, earthquakes, etc. Why didn't you ask nature? I'm not responsible. Sorry. It's not nature kills people. We're sensitive, fragile beings, each one of us. We're so fragile that sometimes things go wrong, sometimes we come to the end of our life, sometimes an accident happens, sometimes you trip, and there's so many ways that human beings can pass away, can die. And one of those ways which makes you more fragile is if you worry a lot. It's amazing just how this brain, can heal people, and it can also kill people. Our attitudes, the way of living our life, the way we perceive things. Sometimes we get so frustrated that we can die. I remember many times. What was it? There's one of these monks, was a good friend. We kind of bonded a bit together because he went to Oxford, and I was at Cambridge, and he was a Rhodes Scholar. And he was a very lovely monk because he was from, I think, Tennessee. He had this really deep southern accent. And I remember that he was a good monk, but once he got 2 forms of typhus at the same time. He was really sick. And I remember I was at the monastery in Thailand when one of the doctors came past and just kind of dropped in to do some good karma, and he looked at this monk, and the doctor almost freaked out. He said, he's really sick. Get him to Bangkok now. And there was no aircraft we could use, so we just did whatever we could, which was we put him in a first-class cabin on an overnight train. That's the only way you can do that. And the doctor had arranged to have an ambulance on the platform of the station in Bangkok. How he managed to do that, I don't know. But anyway, so from the train straight into the ambulance, and they rushed him to the hospital as fast as they possibly could. And I remember just talking to the doctor. My Thai in those days was fluent, and so I talked to the doctor afterwards. He said, I took one look at him at the station when he arrived. This is another doctor. I thought, no, there's no way he can get to the hospital in time. He really gave up hope, but nevertheless, he hung on there. He managed to survive the journey through the traffic and also get to the hospital, and he's still alive. And if you're a Rhodes Scholar, you also have to not be just smart, but also physically fit. He was a champion wrestler. So, he was a tough guy. But anyhow, when he got to the hospital, it was just never really recovering, but never dying. So that's when we decided to send him to our new monasteries in UK. Maybe he would get some better treatment there. And so I remember visiting him when I went to visit my mother and went to see him. And he was like this patient in the attic room of the monastery. And I remember reading many of these novels, not Jane Eyre. Who was it? There was this crazy lady. Sorry? No, not Wuthering Heights. No, that's a different novel. No, but they kept this lady locked in an attic room. And anyway, that seemed to be the places in the 19th century where they put people who were crazy, who didn't want people to see, locked them in the attic of these big mansions. And that's where this guy was. And because apparently he couldn't even leave his room. He was just too exhausted even to think about getting up for years. And when I went to see him, you used to know him when he was really fit and healthy, and now he was just, just hanging on for life. He's not that old. And so anyway, the abbot of the monastery there one day had the insight. He went up to that room and he looked at this poor monk, young monk, really sick, and told him, I've come up here on behalf of all the monks and nuns who know you and care for you, all the lay people who try and look after you, and all your family over in the United States, on behalf of all of them, I've come up here to give you permission to die. Don't try so hard to get better. You've been trying that for years. So just let go. Be kind. Open the door of your heart to your condition. If you have to die, it's fine by us. And apparently that's when he started crying. And then he got better. He did. At last I know he's still alive. He was living in South Africa somewhere. He did actually leave the monk and get married, but he's still very much alive. So it's a wonderful therapy, not fighting any illnesses. That adds tension to your condition. He's trying so hard to do something good for the people who look after you. Imagine when you go and see your loved one in a hospital and they're dying. Imagine what your loved one must think. And you come all that way, spend the time to get there, and what do you say when you ask them? Just, how do you feel? If that was me, I said, sick! I'm in hospital, stupid. But how many patients will be honest? Most patients, well, I feel a little bit better today. They're stretching the truth. You're almost forcing them to lie. They don't want to disappoint the people who've come all that way to look after them. Anyway, dear Ajahn, thank you very much for your teaching. Does meditation bring good karma to ourselves and to the world? Yes. That's an easy one. Huge ones. It brings good karma to you because the meditation makes you very peaceful. When you're very peaceful, you get very wise. Your kindness increases enormously. If I brought you some good karma and the BF and the ahipasiko, it's only because of the karma. Only so because of the meditation. That's where it all comes from, honestly. Not because I studied a lot. If you know what I studied, it was studied about theoretical physics. I know how to create an atom bomb. Is that good karma, learning how to do that? No, what the great thing is learning how to understand people and what kindness is, what peace is. One of the things which, is one of the things I love teaching. I just know what it's like to get these deep meditations. And that's why I want to encourage every one of you, eventually, I don't care when, please don't be afraid. Just go for it. It's a blessing not just for you, but for the whole world. Dear Ajahn, may you, or can you tell us the story of the man who was told he was going to be executed, but on the day he died from his fear? Thank you. Did I tell that story before?
That's the story of dripping water on the neck.
The guy in prison, Ajahn.
Sorry?
The guy that was in prison and he was going to be killed. Remember, he gave that years ago.
Yeah. I think he got reborn, so I can't remember it. I do remember that Nasruddin story. which is nice. About Nasruddin, he was this Iranian mullah and a Sufi, and he was always irritating others. He was really smart and he didn't really have much fear. And so one day, the Shah in Iran, just other people just said, he's really broken all the laws. He has to be executed. And the Shah really liked him because it was good fun. But then he couldn't save his life. So he said, there's nothing I can do, I have to follow the law. So he'll have to be executed. And then Nasruddin stated, oh, that's such a great shame, because I just found out this method which will make your wife never argue with you again. This little chant. He said, you know a chant like that? I said, of course. That's why I'm saying that, if you give me some time, I can actually make sure your wife never, ever, ever, ever argues with you anymore at all. Never. And the Shah thought, well, that'd be impossible. That'd be incredible. So the Nasruddin said, well, look, give me a year, to actually perfect this. And if I fail, then you can execute me. So the Shah said, okay. And then afterwards, his friends said, you never told us you can do that chant. And then Nasruddin said, I can't. It's impossible. Then why did you say it? Well, look, I've got an extra year of life. Who knows what will happen in that year? The Shah might die, I might die, or something might happen. The future's uncertain. So I've got an extra year of life. Won't you be happy at that? That was his answer. Do you think that's a good answer? None of you are laughing. Anyway, about something dripping and dropping. I cannot remember that one. Maybe I'm in denial. Maybe I've blotted it out of my memory bank through my 5 hindrances. I do remember the story of Emperor Asoka's son. That was a good story. And the Emperor Asoka's son, Emperor Asoka's son, yes, always wanted to inherit the riches and the wealth of the emperor. He wasn't at all interested in spiritual things. And so Emperor Asoka's son just was, Emperor Asoka couldn't even teach him anything. So he figured out this plan. Emperor Asoka went to take a bath, a royal bath, and he left, his royal clothing just, in the anteroom, get undressed and get into the bath. It was all planned out. And one of his guards, attendants, whatever, just happened to show the son. He said, oh, here's all your father's royal insignia and his clothes. One day when your father's dead, you'll have to wear this stuff. Would you like to try it on? No one will see you. The father's in the bath. And of course, he always wanted to be an emperor, the son. So he tried it on. And as soon as he put it on, unexpectedly, that's when the emperor came out of the bath. And he saw his son wearing the royal clothes. And he told his son, what are you doing? I'm just trying them on, I'll wear them one day, I'm your son, the heir. But don't you know that any person who wears the emperor's robes when he is still alive will have to be executed? But, Daddy, you're my father, you can't execute me. And the Emperor Asoka said, I have to show that I am not, what's it called? What? Favoring anybody, yeah. Just because you're my son doesn't mean I must not follow the law. That you have to be executed. Daddy, Daddy, please, no. But look, you are my son. So what I'll do, I'll give you 7 days where you can wear any of my clothing you wish. You can actually just have all the food which I would always eat. You can have every pleasure you ever wanted. But after 7 days, we'll have to execute you. That's final. And so the son was condemned to death after 7 days of enjoying the pleasures of being a king. And after those 7 days, the king and the executioner came to fetch the son. And the Emperor Asoka said, "Did you enjoy the pleasures of being an emperor?" And the son said, "Enjoy? What do you mean? I couldn't even sleep at night. I knew I was going to be executed today. How can you enjoy any sensory pleasures when you know you're going to die soon?" And at that the emperor smiled. He said, "I'm not going to execute you. I planned this whole thing. I set it up. I made sure those clothes were out there, and you were encouraged by one of my attendants to put them on just to see. And when you had them all on, then I was told, it's time for me to come out and catch you. Whether you're going to die in 7 days, or 7 months, or 7 years, what's really the difference? How can you enjoy sensory pleasures when you know that they're only temporary?" "Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu," said the prince. And he never was a bad person again. It's his way of teaching. The emperor's words to his son. And that's how he taught his son. Would you like to be taught that way? You know, it's so hard. I'm really impressed with the young people who have come here, because they've come here, is it voluntarily? Please tell your father that how the great Anathapindika, how he taught his son. Anathapindika's son would never like to go and hear the Buddha. Never interested. So Anathapindika thought and thought and thought, and he found a way. His son was pretty lazy. But he told his son, "Look, you know, you're my son, I'm your dad, and I'm wealthy, so I'll give you $100 every time you go into the Jeta Grove Monastery. You don't have to listen to anything, you don't have to ask any questions, you don't have to meditate. As long as you're in that Jana Grove Monastery for 1 hour, I will give you $100. He thought that was really cool. You know, going to Jana Grove, you don't have to listen to anything or do anything, just as long as you're in the compound. You get $100. If you really need more, stay there for 2 hours, you get $200. And so that's what Anathapindika told his son. So whenever his son was a bit short of cash, he went into the monastery. Mostly he just leant against the wall and fell asleep. So then, there was one day, he kept on doing that. He was going into the monastery again, and he needed the cash. And his father would always give it to him. And then, when he went in there, the son got bored. And he saw all these people smiling, getting inspired by this Buddha giving a talk. So he thought, I'll just kind of check it out. He was in the compound. So he went in and listened to the Lord Buddha's teachings. And he found out why his father was so devoted to the Buddha. The son was inspired. And then he went back home. He got all that money out he saved up and gave it back to his father, saying, "Thank you, Daddy. What you made me do was worth so much. I only did it because of the money. I didn't realize this was something worth much more than money. There's those teachings which I had." So that's one good way to get your children to go to the monastery. Bribe them. Is that a good idea? I won't tell you, Dad. Is it necessary to experience all the layers of our conditioning and painful experience in order to break through to stream winning or the process of purification? No. You don't have to experience all the layers, just let them all go. That's the amazing thing, that letting go can happen where a huge amount of stuff disappears. You don't even know exactly what it is. You let it all go. And it can never reach you again. Huge amounts. Because sometimes I remember when the Buddha started talking about the law of karma, sometimes just, say you give some food to a Buddha on arm's length, you're not really sure who the Buddha is, but you see other people enjoying this, are inspired by it, so you give it a try. And the amount of karma you get is huge, just by giving one spoon of rice to a Buddha. And so you have, if ever that was you, giving food to a Buddha, that's huge amounts of merit. If you do something bad, like calling the Buddha a baldy, good-for-nothing ascetic, what Siddhartha Gautama did, that's huge amounts of demerit. Millions of times of demerit. So how come Siddhartha Gautama could, in probably his next life, become a fully enlightened Buddha? You can let go of stuff so easily with the right mind. Huge amounts of it. You can forgive yourself. That's one of my little sayings. The doors of hell, real hell realms, are open to you. You can walk out whenever you want. If you have a compassionate, pure mind, a pure thought in your mind. You just can't stay in those places. That's one of the reasons why people who become stream winners can never get reborn or stay in those realms. The mind doesn't belong there. They've let go of so much. How to handle itchy while meditating. It is so subtle, frequent and random, which is always draws the attention. Thank you. The best way to deal with itchy is with scratchy. Give yourself a scratch. And then after a while, it shows the body is, you're being kind to it, and after a while the scratchy disappears. And the itchy disappears too. Dear Ajahn, why did you choose to be a Buddhist? I had no choice. And it's when I read a book about Buddhism, that's who I was. It's really strange about choice. Why did I choose to grow up? You had no choice. It's nature. So why did you choose to come to Jhana Grove for a retreat? You had no choice. You had to be here. Why do people choose to put $50 notes, $100 notes in the donation box? Because you have no choice. You've been brainwashed. Why should a layman like us choose Buddhism over Christianity? Oh my goodness. You know that sometimes when you die, it's much better to be a Buddhist than being a Christian. One of the reasons is because in Christianity you have just one exam. You pass or you fail, and it's hell forever or heaven forever. And it's such a very terrifying exam at the end of your life when you think you're judged. I'm being serious here. You really think you're being judged, and you have one exam, and if you pass, you don't have another go as a Christian. It's final, real final exams. And I know just when I did final exams, I could always do them again if I really blew it. I wasn't that scared. But imagine you're a Christian at death. If you really believe that, you are really scared so much. So that's one of the reasons why I like being a Buddhist much better. It's much kinder. You always have another try, another go. And you're never sort of punished like it was in Christianity. That's what I felt. It's a much more pleasant place to be, much kinder communities. Sometimes people had a hard time understanding that. But it was this Anagarika story. He came to Bodhinyana Monastery. He came to see me early in the morning. He was a Westerner. And he said, I did a terrible thing last night. I'm sure you're going to have to throw me out. And what did you do? He said, I was hungry. It's a true story. I was hungry, so I snuck into the kitchen at midnight, around then, and I took some bread, stole the bread, and made myself a sandwich and ate it. I broke so many rules. Ajahn Brahm, you're going to have to kick me out, aren't you? I said, no! You're not that unkind, you made a mistake, for goodness sake. The Buddha always said, if you make a mistake, admitting it is the first good step, and then my job as a teacher is to tell you to forgive yourself and make sure you eat more at lunchtime. And if you need to eat, if you're hungry in the evening, there's all this other stuff you can eat, like chocolate and cheese and honey and fruit juice. It's amazing what you can still eat in the evening. So do that next time. Don't go and make a sandwich for yourself. He said, but I did. You're going to have to punish me, aren't you? I always remember this story. That's why I tell it very often. And I said, no. Just make sure you never do it again. That's what the Buddha taught to run a monastery. Always forgive, to teach, and to give advice. And if you admit the faults and try better next time, you're always forgiven. But he's told me, I remember this, he said, if you don't punish me, I will do it again. That's my nature. He put me on the spot. So what punishment could I give him? And that day, that morning, I've been reading a book by this, I think, Robert Hughes, called The Fatal Shore. And it was a bestseller, but it was a story about the history of Australia. They used to send convicts over to Australia, and it was very brutal punishment for them. If they made any mistakes, they were whipped with this terrible, brutal instrument called a cat of nine tails, they called it. Like a nine-thonged whip. It was brutal. And I'd just been reading about it that morning. So I said, well, if you want a traditional Australian punishment, I'll give you 50 strokes of the cat. That's what I told him. And he was wearing white clothes like Anagarikas do, like the two Anagarikas over here. And he actually believed I was going to do that. His face went whiter than the cloth he was wearing. He really got scared. That's not really what I wanted. He wanted to be punished. So I have to choose for punishment for you 50 strokes of the cat. Do you think I could whip anybody? No way. So I told him what 50 strokes of the cat meant. We had two cats. Two four-legged cats with tails and whiskers. Find one of those cats. I think they'll oblige, they'll be acceptable to you. Put them on your lap and stroke it. 1, 2 strokes, 3 strokes. Learn some kindness and compassion. That's how you learn and grow, not by punishing and hurting somebody, by being kind to them. And that, to this day, has always been the 50 strokes of the cat punishment to anyone who misbehaves. These days we don't have like real cats. That's why we have all these teddy bears and soft toys here. So, some of you, if you do anything wrong, you can have 50 strokes of the teddy bear. And this is not a joke, it's not playing around. Sometimes people judge me and think, you need to be more serious, Ajahn Brahm. This is serious. You grow much better and you learn much more if you can have that kindness. What's the difference between relax and sloth and torpor? Experiment, find out. Sloth and torpor is easy to investigate. Is it? When you have sloth and torpor, how mindful can you be about sloth and torpor? You're hardly aware of what's going on anyway. That's one of the reasons why it's very difficult to notice if you have sloth and torpor. That's why the story, I don't know, I can't use anything here. But anyway, I used to try the matchbox simile. You know the matchbox simile? That's okay. You got a matchbox there? Oh, no. Right here. Match. Snap. With the matchbox simile, I could use this. We get a matchbox full of matches, and then we would take the cover off, so it's just the tray with the matches. And when we start meditating, we put the matchbox with all the matches in it on top of your head. Is that going to work? Okay, it's good enough. So you'd know, because if you started getting sleepy and sloth and torpor, in fall, and all the matchboxes would go on the floor. And you could hear it, so could everybody else, so it was embarrassing. So that's what I tried. Did it work? Even the first 1 or 2 days. I could put the matchbox on my head, and it never fell off my head. I thought I'd beaten sloth and torpor. And then someone took me aside and said, we were watching you when you put that matchbox on top of your head. The reason why it never fell off, you were still nodding, but you were nodding like this. The psychology of the brain is really weird. It would always just, not fall off, but you were still sleepy. So you can never trust that anymore. And of course, how you overcome sloth and torpor in meditation, what's the reason for it? What's the cause for it? Number one, you're tired. That's the main reason. You haven't slept enough. Number two is because you haven't got enough joy in the mind, inspiration. Many, many times when I was a young person, I remember once I was just traveling on the the east coast of Guatemala and Mexico. And I remember being in a fishing boat at dawn, see the sun rise over the Caribbean Ocean, or Caribbean Sea, whatever you call it. It was one of the most beautiful sunsets I'd ever seen in my life. I'd been traveling all day. I was really exhausted. I was only about 19. And when I saw that sunrise over the Caribbean, it was absolutely gorgeous. I couldn't take my eyes off it. I was really sleepy. I hadn't slept all night. There's no way I could sleep. The beauty was more important than the sleep. So I never slept that night. I always remember that. How come you're meditating or listening to a talk and get sleepy? That means the talk is not grabbing you, it's not interesting for you, it's not beautiful enough for you. I remember that just when I was a young man. I used to go to all these Buddhist societies, and some of those teachers were very highly regarded, very famous. But as soon as they started, he started being sleepy. Why? Because it wasn't beautiful, it wasn't inspiring, it never grabbed your attention. That's why I actually look at you when I'm giving a talk, and if you start looking at your iPhone, if you start, I know I've lost your attention. That's why one of the things I do is raise my voice when I give a talk. That usually wakes people up. Or tell a funny story, a joke. That usually wakes people up. And then between the jokes and the raising your voice, that's when I teach the Dhamma. That's how you keep you awake. Dear Ajahn, my friend lost her jhana, and I heard sometimes jhana can disappear because of old age. Oh, way. Am I old? I'm not old. Can you tell that to my monks? Because they always say I'm an old monk. And you know when they started saying I was old? When I used to say, oh, I'm getting old. You've got to look after me more. I'm getting old. And they said, no, Ajahn Brahm, you're not getting old. Yeah, I am old. I admit it now. But jhana doesn't have to disappear. Jhana's got nothing to do with the body. It's the mind. How old was the Buddha when he passed away? 80. Did he lose his jhana? No way. It doesn't depend upon the body, it depends upon the mind. What should we do then? It doesn't happen. If we cannot achieve Sotapanna in this life, can it be saved to the next life? The jhanas, can they? Why do you think this 6 or 7-year-old boy could sit under a rose apple tree, had no training at all in this life, and go into the first jhana very quickly? Why? Because he had trained in his previous life under Kassapa. This is actually, it's not transferred like some inheritance. You go to the bank and cash it, you get a jhana out. It's just the fact you've had that tendency, and that tendency remains with you. And sometimes you do remember. Hi Ajahn, someone seems on trouble. Someone seems on trouble. A group of people is attack her, not physically. I don't actually understand what is going on, yet I don't think she deserves those treatments. Is this something to... If this is happening to you, will you help her? Honestly, I'm scared to help her. I'm afraid I might get into trouble by helping her. In future, there is a lot of people is attacking her. The other point, she is fight alone. I know her, I don't think she deserves those treatments. If I don't help her, I feel bad. I'm afraid interference others' karma too. If I help her, is this kind of interference? Others' karma? If you're a doctor or a nurse in a hospital and you help others, is that sort of interfering with their karma? Suppose I break a leg. I promise I won't on this retreat. Suppose I break a leg and I tell you, I'm in pain, but I say, look, this is my karma to have a leg break at this time of my life. Please don't take me to hospital. Or if you drop a flower pot on your big toe, are you going to say, oh no, don't give me any medication, it's my bad karma, and I've got to pay off that bad karma? Is that an obvious thing to do, Venerable Chanda? Of course it's not. It's our opportunity to give you extra attention, extra care. That's how things work. So someone seems in trouble, a group of people are attacking you, not physical. You know that a lot of times it's not physical attacks. I mean, are these real people, or are you talking about spirits? If you're talking about spirit peoples attacking people, they cannot do that. I mean, it's physically impossible, unless you believe in that. And so that's why sometimes a good monk or a nun give you some chanting, or you come to a place like Jhana Grove, and the bad spirits can't get in this place. You know that once years ago, there was one of the disciples, a layperson, and she wanted to introduce a senior indigenous elder to come and see what we're up to in our monastery, so that it would inspire him. And she brought him to Bodhinyana Monastery. The gate was open, but he said he couldn't get in. And so she came alone. And then I sort of, was nice, not nice to her, I mean, just welcomed her to the monastery, had a chat with her. And only later, she told me this indigenous elder was waiting at the gate, could not get in. I said, why did you not tell me? He needed to be invited in. You just can't come in just by yourself. You can feel the power of the beings in this monastery, the heavenly beings, the relics in the room. Sensitive people can feel that power. And if you're not as dangerous but a bad spirit, you can't get in through the gate. This place is protected. It's amazing just how many years we've had this monastery, and nothing untoward has ever happened like that. Amazing things have happened, but not untoward ones. So please, if you can help her, maybe I don't know who wrote this, you may be young, but if you get get the monks to do some chanting for her, or the nuns to do some chanting, and then if they can come and stay in the monastery, they should feel no pressure on them at all. Thank you for your response. Which one? I found it hard to be kindful. There was a time my mind being misunderstood as hypocritical, they thought. I tried to please them and hurt me even more. The more we are friendly and kind, the more they dare to bully me. Instead, I found if we are cool enough, make a distance, they will not dare to bully me. What's wrong with my kindness? How to fix it? One thing is because you're not being kind to yourself. Kindness is not just to others, kindness is to yourself. And sometimes to being kind to yourself and kind to others, sometimes you need to report bullying. If you report bullying, you don't do this just to protect yourself, you're protecting other beings who get bullied by bad people. And that means that's how to be kind. If I am kind, and what's a good example? Suppose there's an elephant who comes into this monastery. Actually, we don't have elephants here. What do we have? Yeah, I know, but kangaroos aren't harmful at all. Snakes, even snakes are not harmful. We don't have harmful... Oh, yes, okay, we have bikies. Groups of bikies who do burnouts at the entranceway. So, I remember just meeting these. Were they bikies? I think they had these paddle boards, and they were taking movies of paddle boarding down the hill from the entrance to Bodhinyana Monastery down to the car park. And so I heard them making a big noise. I said, "Look, that's not nice to do that in a Buddhist monastery. We're on retreat right now." And he said, "Look, we're much bigger than you. You better sort of not complain to the police or anything, otherwise they will burn you down or something." I said, "Look, that's not a nice thing to say. Get out of here." So, I was quite firm. I wasn't going to be bullied. At another time, I'm just thinking up these stories, the real stories. I was meditating on Bunbury Beach. Bunbury is south of here. It's a big city. I was teaching at the prison over there. One day when I had a few hours, so I went down to the beach in Bunbury. No one was there. It was a quiet place, So I sat on the beach and meditated for a couple of hours. I'll tell this first story first of all. It's a true story, but funny. I think it was anyway. So as I was meditating on Bunbury Beach, I closed my eyes, and I have good meditation, just don't feel anything around me. And when I opened my eyes, I got scared. I won't get scared if there was like a snake. But what I saw sitting next to me was this blonde-headed 17-year-old in a bikini. I don't know how she got there. And when I turned to my right, there was another, she was a brunette, 17-year-old in a bikini. And I thought, my goodness, if someone takes a photograph of me, how on earth will I explain that? Here's Ajahn Brahm at the beach with his 2 girlfriends. And that was a time when many monks did get into trouble in Thailand. If they saw me like that, how can you explain it? The explanation was that was the end of the year at school, and they'd just done the university entrance exams, the last exam of their school year. And the school was right opposite the beach. You know, what would a kid do? They just finished their exams, celebrate freedom. And then so they all got changed into their bathers and bikinis, whatever else they had, and they went to sort of enjoy it at the beach. It was a nice warm afternoon. I just didn't know that it was the end of the school exams, and so I just was meditating there, and that's how I knew they were 17-year-old, because that's the last year at school. And that's what they were doing. They just sat next to me. And I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, we saw you sitting on the beach, really peaceful. And we were kind of interested. You know, who are you? What are you doing? How can you sit so still? They were really interested in Buddhism and meditation. That's why they were sitting there. But I must admit, I didn't give them much time. I was scared. So I answered their questions quickly. I said, I think I have to go now. Okay. So they went into the sea, and I just went down the road and escaped. You know, that's a true story. That's how I was trained to do. Anyway. Does that make sense?
You're going to tell the other one now.
Okay, the second story, okay. The second story, I was sitting there meditating, and then as I was meditating, just starting the meditation, so I wasn't so deep this time, and so then I heard something whoosh, whoosh by my ear. What was that? And then another thing, whoosh over my head. And I realized that somebody was throwing stones at me. And then I just listened again, and another stone came past, and then somebody shouted out at me, "Get off our beach, Rajneeshi!" And do you ever remember this Bhagawan Sri Rajneesh? He was an Indian guy who was a bit of a star for the Westerners, but was really badly behaved. He was the one who had 365 Rolls Royces or something. He was just really sort of, no one liked him at all, and he really upset people. And some of his disciples had bald heads and brown clothes on. And so they thought that I was one of his disciples come to start a temple over in Bunbury. Get off our beach, Rajneesh. So what do you think I did? Slowly stood up, turned around to see them, and walked towards them. I'm not going to be intimidated. And anyway, I walked towards them. There was just young people, maybe 13 or 14-year-olds, and about half a dozen of them, 8 of them or something. They all ran away. They're kind of afraid of a monk, except for one. One stayed. And I think I even told him, don't be afraid. They were afraid of me because I didn't show any fear. And so I'm sure if I'd have stayed on there soon, one of those stones, rocks would have hit me, even if they were aiming to miss, just by chance. And so I said, look, I'm not a Rajneeshi, and even if I was, it's not a good thing to throw stones at anybody. It makes you worse than they are. And then I had a nice conversation about Buddhism and precepts. And at the end of the conversation, they said, oh, sorry, sir, we didn't realize who you were. We'd never seen a Buddhist monk before. And then we sort of had a nice parting. I always find that lack of fear always gives much better results than fear. And it's 9/11. How are you going? Carry on, okay. And one of the other things which I did as a monk, that when I went to stay with my mum in the town of Acton in West London many years ago, I always made sure that I could be of service by giving talks wherever I could. And one of the places I would give a talk was in a Sri Lankan temple called the London Buddhist Vihara in Chiswick. That's my area. That's where I grew up. And so I remember just walking to the temple in the evening. I knew the way. I'd walked it many times when I was at school. And so as I was walking, I made a mistake because times had changed. And there was one of these council estates, they called them sink estates, where they put many migrants, many unemployed, and what the police said was a hotbed of crime. And so I was walking past that, and I saw some of the youths, always out of work, not studying or doing anything for themselves. They were congregating at the entranceway to this sink estate. And they saw me coming towards them. And there was maybe about 10 of them. And they were big. And as I was walking towards them, they looked at me. And they had nothing to do. So they started trying to intimidate me. They started chanting, Buddha, 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 Buddha. And it was very easy for me to turn around. I knew that area so well. I could go another way. But I'm not like that. I'm very sort of stubborn. I was going in that direction, so I'll go in that direction. And as I went closer to them, they saw me coming. Buddha, 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 Buddha. They were trying to intimidate me. And of course I refused to be intimidated. And as I got closer, I never hurried up, I never slowed down, I never showed any fear. And as I got within maybe the distance between you and I at the moment, then I raised up my hands. I didn't know what I was doing. I've never studied Kung Fu in my life. The only reason I knew Kung Fu was because there was a TV show when I was the last year of my lay life. It was David Carradine or something? It was him. Anyway, I know that I was a school teacher my last year, and I said that was a really good series, this Kung Fu. And one of them said a very good comment. If this is supposed to be Buddhist and spiritual, why there's always so much violence every episode? I just thought, yeah, it's got a point there. But anyway, I did my Kung Fu pose. And I was trusting that those kids, they didn't know any Kung Fu. And they saw, remember, just this bald head, brown robe, showing no fear, walking towards them, making a Kung Fu. They didn't know. It wasn't Kung Fu. I didn't know what I was doing. But I walked towards them. And as I walked towards them, they parted and allowed me to walk right through them, never touching me. Phew, that was a close one. And that's pretty accurate what happened. I only never said phew when they could hear that. That was much later. I'm a crazy monk, honestly. I don't know. I admit it. I could have really been damaged there, but I wasn't. It's a good story, though. I had very strong and vivid dreams about my daily busy life 3 nights in a row here during the retreat. They made me feel very tired when I get up. I hope that you would not find this question too silly, but I want to know, is this common in a retreat? Does it mean any purification process happening? Thanks a lot. Probably a purification process, yes. In other words, you have those memories, and it's not what you're used to. Being in a retreat, you don't have to do any work. So after 3 days in a row, then it just disappears. And almost purifying you, saying you're allowed to rest. You're allowed to be peaceful. You don't have to keep worrying about all this work which people do. So 3 nights in a row, the 4th night would not happen. You'd be peaceful. So next time, don't wait for 3 nights. Just straight away. You're not at work anymore. You're amazing that if you did have to work here, you should give a bill to your boss, to your employer. That you're working and they're not getting paid for it. Can't you just be more strong and just say, if you're not paying me, boss, I'm not working. Go on strike when you're on retreat. Go on sit down strike. Called meditating. Okay. Tell me when you've had enough. How does energy turn into matter? Goodness gracious. It doesn't turn into matter, it is matter. It is stuff. That's why I really love the idea of what stuff is, what matter is. Like the wood which you're sitting on. Is that wood impenetrable? Is it solid? It appears solid, only appearances. If you actually analyze that wood, it's like structure. You'll find like the what is it called, the cells, the dead cells of the bamboo. And you analyze those dead cells of the bamboo, and you find they're just a few molecules. And those molecules, they're not consistent throughout the cell. There's lots of spaces in between them. When you look at those molecules, then they're made of, what are they called now? I won't call them molecules, like atoms. And those atoms are not continuous. There's a huge amount of space between every atom. You look at those atoms, the old days, that electrons, neutrons, nucleuses, and every one of those is a huge amount of space between them. The most of an atom is emptiness, nothing there. And then you look at sort of even like an electron or a proton, that's mostly nothing. There's huge amounts of nothing there. And the deeper you go in, you find these are just forces interacting, not stuff. They'd say like stuff, but stuff doesn't really exist. And you look at that floor and the concrete underneath that floor, and it's totally empty of stuff. It's just the forces interaction. Because those forces are interacting with you, you don't sink into the floor. But nevertheless, I kind of like this simile, that these fundamental particles called like neutrinos, and there's billions of neutrinos. They're so small. They're just flowing through you right now. You're being drenched by them. But because you don't interact with them, they just pass straight through you, as if you're just not there. Just so, are you solid? No. Are you fat? Not according to neutrinos. They can't even see you. Go straight through. And the reason why I sometimes like saying this, but maybe not so late, is that it just shows the mirage of existence. We give it meaning it doesn't really have. Like solidity. It's just how it seems, not how it is. How does matter turn into energy? It's one and the same thing. It doesn't turn from one to the other, it's just identical. Which one is love and kindness in the Noble Eightfold Path? Which one is loving kindness in the Noble Eightfold Path? I'm a bit confused. Sorry, you don't have to say sorry. Loving kindness is the antidote of sorry. Why do people keep saying sorry when they don't really mean it? I've invited you to ask questions. That's the time now. It's questions and answers. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You don't have to say sorry for doing what you're supposed to be doing. Is that correct? If you don't understand, I'm sorry. That was kind of a joke. Anyway, loving kindness is a second factor of the second part of the Eightfold Path. Eightfold Path, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Number 2, Sama Sankappa, thank you. Sama Sankappa, the second of the 3 Sama Sankappas is Avayapada Sankappa. And Avayapada is a synonym for metta. It literally means non-ill will. It's explained as loving kindness. Not just non-ill will, it's much more positive than that. It's loving kindness. So that's in the second factor of the Eightfold Path, the second part of that second factor. When I'm in deep meditation, I often get disrupted by the sensation I need to swallow my saliva. Is this commonly seen amongst others? Yes. Just swallow it. And if you just swallow it a couple of times, then just the irritation disappears. If it does persist when you're meditating a lot, the best solution is that you can hire this from dental supplies. This little tube you put in there, and that sucks out the saliva while you're meditating. That makes sense? But don't make a big thing about it, just swallow. And maybe swallow again, but then soon it goes away. Hello Ajahn, can you do a guided meditation? Yes, I can. I know how to do that. That was what the question was. Am I able to do it? Yeah. Would I do it? No. How does unformed source form into matter? Unformed sauce, you mean like tomato sauce? Or unformed sauce form into matter? You got me there. Dear Ajahn, can jhana happen in both samatha and vipassana meditation? Samatha meditation is vipassana meditation. Vipassana is samatha. You can't split them up. Once upon a time, am I going on too long? Okay, good. Once upon a time, there was this couple called Sam and Vi. Sam and Vi were a very spiritual couple. And after lunch, they would always like to go on a walk up Meditation Mountain. Sam used to go up there because it was so peaceful up Meditation Mountain. You know, it was so quiet, and quietness has its own value. Vi, she wanted to go up Meditation Mountain because of the view. High up on Meditation Mountain, you could see so far and so clear. But Vi and Sam, their surnames were Vipassana and Sam Atta. They had these 2 dogs. One of the dogs was called Anna, surnamed Parnasati, and the other dog was called Metta. So Anna and Metta would always go with Sam and Vi up a walk on Meditation Mountain. And The first time they went on a walk up Meditation Mountain, he's going halfway up. The peace was so powerful. The Sam was just smiling all over his face. It was so quiet and silent. And with state-of-the-art, Canon cameras with all the filters, not these little things which you have, but a real camera. Sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about again. And then she would take these amazing shots of the world, of life, of everything. They were so clear. And what about Metta the dog? Metta didn't have a camera. Metta was wagging her tail, wagging it so hard it was almost about to fall off. She was very, very happy when she was getting halfway up Meditation Mountain. What about Anna, Parnasati? Anna the dog, you could hardly find her. She was disappearing. That's the nature of what happens to your breath when you go up Meditation Mountain. It vanishes, it's done its job. Then you get the bliss come up, the beauty and the joy, the happiness. And when they got to the top of Meditation Mountain, oh wow, that was really still. Hardly anything moved. It was so peaceful. And Vi, she had a special camera, made no noise at all. Just touch something and it would take these incredible photos of life. The insights which you got up on Meditation Mountain were out of this world. And Metta the dog was just this ball of bliss, happy as could be, but silent. And Metta the dog also had good eyes and could enjoy the view. Anapanasati was totally gone. She'd come into being again as you walk down Meditation Mountain. But up on Meditation Mountain, Sam, Atta, Vi, Pasana, and Metta always go together. You can't separate them. You like that story? And Ajahn Chah used to say, what can you see now? The front of my hand. They can see the back of my hand. They can see the front and the back. But now you can only see the front. The back's there, I promise you. You can only see the back, the front is there. You can see the side, you can also see a little bit of front and a little bit of back. That's Vipassana and Samatha. They always go together. You cannot split them up. And the sign you've been doing Samatha meditation properly is you get insights. If you haven't been doing Samatha, the insights don't really come up. So the Sam, Atta, is the cause for Vipassana. And the Vipassana is the cause for Samatha. Once you see things as they truly are, you can let them go easy. They're not a problem anymore. So you naturally get very peaceful and still. I have not taken up the 5 precepts. Does it mean that it's difficult for me to have a jhana? It's more difficult, not impossible though. Why don't you take up the five precepts? It makes if you've done any vipassana and you don't see the reason for the 5 precepts, you haven't got much insight. The 5 precepts, not killing, not stealing, not lying, not taking alcohol. What did I miss out? No sexual contact at all is even better, and no alcohol or drugs. Why do you need any of that for? It's much more peaceful, joyful, happy keeping 5 precepts. It actually adds to the depth and power of the jhanas. Any Nikaya Sutra mention about the dying process? Since you talked about Anitamura jhana's near-death experience today, which are like the jhana experience. Thank you. A lot of time you don't have to train to die. It's going to happen anyway. But when you do jhana meditations, you understand how it works. Your 5 senses stop. That's called death. Getting to that point can be painful or distressing, getting to the points of where your five senses stop. But afterwards, it's always really pleasant. So once your five senses stop, what happens next? The five senses stop, so the mind is so addicted, used to the five senses, it starts to create a mind-made body for most people. And the mind-made body is fascinating because how you are cremated, what you're wearing when you're cremated, that's how your mind-made body appears. There was this one case, this will have to be the last story. There's a few more, actually not a few more, but a lot. I'll put those over there. And there's one of the disciples, he introduced me to one of his friends who was a builder who lived over in Kalgoorlie. He'd hardly ever come to Perth, but he developed cancer. So he invited his friend to go and see me, get a blessing, a bit of advice on how to die. And then eventually he died, and his friend who introduced me to him said he had okay, here's the last question. Had a weird experience. The weird experience was that middle of the night in Perth, he was woken up by his wife. She elbowed him in bed. And so she said to the wife, "Don't do that." And she found his wife was fast asleep. She never elbowed him, so he turned around, and it was his friend who had just died, the ghost. Don't ever be afraid of ghosts, they're really interesting. I mean, I'm honest. And his friend was wearing a suit and a polka dot bow tie. He'd never ever seen him wear a suit before in the life. And a polka dot bow tie, he would never wear formal clothes. He was a builder in the very hot city of Kalgoorlie. And so he turned around to his wife to wake her up. "Have a look at this." But when he turned back again, the ghost had vanished. But they both got up searching for it. Don't go searching for it. The ghost will come to you, or it'll just disappear. And so he came to tell me that. He said, "This is weird. Not that I saw the ghost, I mean, that happens, but that what he was wearing. I've never ever seen him wear a suit and a bow tie." And actually, a bow tie, polka dot bow tie. And I said, "Well, that's really fascinating. Please, in a day or two's time, ring up his widow, you were friends, just to ask her how she is, how she's doing, anything you can do for her. And then just ask her in passing, by the way, what was he wearing in the coffin?" Because the coffin was closed. You can look inside. And that's when she told him, I put him in this suit. I'd bought it for him years ago, but he refused to wear it. And I thought, now he's dead, he's got no choice, he's going to wear the suit which I brought him. I said, "Anything else?" "Yeah, actually a bow tie I put on him." Again, he refused to wear all his life, and a polka dot bow tie. And that's, he had to come and tell me that. And a good reason. Because even though it's totally unexpected, that's what you dress up in a coffin, often becomes how the ghost appears when they sort of manifest in a mind-made body. But don't worry too much about death. Oh my goodness. The best thing to do is to let go, make peace, and just relax to the max. You can never go wrong with relaxing to the max. You don't have to worry about sloth and torpor when you're dead. Okay, I think I've had enough. Thank you. Now, I've asked all those questions. Now it's time to ask you a question. You can give me a good answer? Okay. That question is, you see the Venerable Chanda over there, and she's offered to join in or take on the whole Q&A tomorrow evening. Yes? Because it's also been nice to actually extend your understanding of what bhikkhunis are. And what these two over here, the two anagarikas are. So you can ask lovely questions to extend your understanding of Buddhism and what they're doing here. Is that a good, okay, Ayachanda? Sorry? Sure. Is that okay with you? Okay, very good. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
There is one condition.
Uh-oh.
You're allowed to ask anything.
Anything? Really? Anything about your deep meditations and enlightenment? They can ask. Be respectful. Because bhikkhunis, fully ordained nuns, they're endangered species. Yeah, that's right. That's like the belief in reincarnation is making a comeback. Oh, come on, that's a joke. Belief in reincarnation is making a comeback. Reincarnation making a comeback. Okay, I won't push it a little more. So good night to you. But also, just what Ayatanda means is, don't be embarrassed. Be kind, because it's our job to try and explain things so you understand why they're bhikkhunis. For a good example, I'll ask you a question. How many bhikkhunis are there in UK? How many? Shh. Don't give the answers. How many?
100.
One. Only one bhikkhuni, and there's none in UK right now. The one in UK is come to Australia. We've got lots of bhikkhunis over in Western Australia. There's only one in the whole of UK, and she's not there now because... Sorry?
0 in UK now.
Yeah.
Because the only ones.
Yeah. That's why she's endangered species. Okay, good night, everybody. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. These ones over here, I don't know what we can do with these. Okay. These ones didn't have good karma. Sorry? New ones tomorrow, okay. Leave them in here for now. Okay.